How's it going, everyone? I'm Rob and this is Combat Self-Defense, and today we're going to talk about the difference between hard training and training hard and what that means for you as a martial artist. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you're subscribed and you have notifications turned on, and let's get started. So I was perusing martial arts Instagram a few days ago, as I often do, and I came across this video by DK Yoo or DK Yoo. I've heard both pronunciations and I'm not sure which one's correct, where he's demonstrating some of his techniques on what looks like either a student or a partner of his. If you don't know who DK Yoo is, he is a martial arts instructor from, I believe, Germany, and he has his own system, which he says is a combination of 15 different martial arts styles. But let's look at the video in question. Now, we can't deny that DK Yoo has some serious skills. He definitely does. The issue that I have is that he's using those skills to make himself look like he's extremely well-versed and adept at fighting. But what's the problem with his training partner? He's just standing there and letting DK Yoo perform his techniques. And he seems to be performing them with 100% intensity. Now, I don't care if you're the weakest person of all time. If I let you swing your fist at me as hard as you can, it's gonna hurt. Obviously, if I do nothing to stop you from punching me in the nose, it's gonna hurt. And at this point, you might be saying, well, that's why that guy's wearing a motorcycle helmet. Let's talk about brain damage. Let's talk about what actually hurts people. Wearing headgear, or in this case, motorcycle gear, doesn't actually do anything to protect you from getting injured while you're training. At least not getting injured to the brain. Because it's not so much that traumatic force injures the brain. We're not punching through someone's skull to bruise their brain. What we're doing is creating a whiplash effect when we hit somebody so that their head shakes back and the brain whips across the back of the skull and back to the front. So, unless you're wearing something that has like a neck piece attached to the shoulders to keep your head from rocking, which will also keep you from moving, your headgear will do nothing but protect you from getting cut. The practice of hitting your training partner or demonstration partner full force is dangerous, and it's all just in the name of theatrics. But that brings us to the root of what I wanted to talk about today. That being the difference between hard training and training hard. Hard training is exactly what we just watched in that video. It is something that is difficult to do regardless of who's doing it. Because I don't care who you're training with or who is being hit, getting hit full force in the face is gonna hurt, period. It's hard objectively. And its benefits are questionable. Because at a certain point, there's only so much head trauma or only so many bicep tears that you can deal with before you can't train anymore. Now, training hard is more subjective. Training hard is dependent entirely on you and your goals. For me, I'm relatively healthy, under 30 years old. I eat pretty well. So, training hard for me doesn't mean surviving the workout. It doesn't mean making it through class without passing out. But let's say I was in my 60s, had 2 knee replacement surgeries, and I was overweight. Now training hard is just showing up and doing the actual training. So training hard is entirely subjective, but it's never going to involve letting someone, a coach or training partner, just wail away on you. It's going to be dependent on your goals and on what exactly the demands of your given discipline are. If you're doing something like jiu-jitsu or boxing, which are both cardio heavy martial arts, then training hard will involve a lot of cardio heavy endeavors. Makes sense, right? So you're going to be doing a lot of high intensity interval training, a lot of running, jump rope, flow rolling. All of those things will be hard training because at a certain point your body will get tired and you'll have to push through that point of no return. But it won't be hard because you're having to fight a concussion. I think inherently all instructors and coaches know the difference between hard training and training hard. At least on an academic level, they understand. Because we should be all striving to create a gym atmosphere that challenges people on a personal level, that meets them where they're at. But then, how does hard training become a thing if we know that we need to be training hard? Well, that's where we got to talk about martial arts egos. Because the danger of being a martial arts instructor, or the risk that you run, is that you get too enamored with your own mythology. You begin to think of yourself as too powerful, or that you should be the most effective, most dangerous person in the room at all times. So, you create hard training scenarios and drills that allow you to beat up your students or other people, and they have no real means of recourse, aside from, I guess, legal recourse. And it's at this point that I should make clear, hard training, training hard, is not the same thing as hard sparring. I'm not saying you shouldn't spar hard. I'm not saying there isn't a situation where you really gotta throw some power at your sparring partners. You shouldn't do it often. You shouldn't do it every time. But if you want to know what it's like to defend yourself at full speed, then you have to train at full speed every once in a while. Makes sense? Now, you can train too soft, which creates the illusion of skill, which makes people think I'm way better than I actually am because I only ever spar at 30% speed, and they think that 30%, that reaction time they get at 30% speed is going to be the same they have at 100% speed. I can tell you it's not. When I'm sparring with someone lightly, I'm a lot more spinny with my attacks. I'm a lot fancier with my footwork, but that's only because I know I'm going to have the time to do that. I'm going to have the ability to do that, and there's not going to be a real risk of me getting injured if it doesn't work. But when I spar with someone who wants to ramp it up a little bit, that's when the hands come up, the chin gets down, and I focus. And you should be able to adapt like that. You should be able to play at a lower intensity and focus at a higher intensity. And yes, I'm a Kajikembo black belt. We have the famous creed said by our founder that class wasn't over until there was blood on the floor. And while that's badass, can't deny that, and it definitely created hard martial artists, it also created a lot of CTE. And it created an environment where you almost can't run a successful Kajikembo gym if you have that mentality. And the people who are gonna be there either won't be there for long because they get too injured and have to quit, or they're not necessarily the kind of person you want to spend time with. Now, I'm not shitting on Kajikembo. I think that was an appropriate adage at the time with what the founders knew about CTE. But we know better now the effects of even minimal concussive force to the brain. And most of us have better training practices that won't result in people getting taken out of training for weeks at a time. It's not difficult to master hitting someone really hard when they're standing still, or beating someone up in a technique when, again, they're standing still. It is difficult to learn to throw a three-piece combination without getting hit back and landing it with clean technique. That part's difficult, and it's going to require a lot of time spent, a lot of sweat, sometimes some tears, and on very rare occasions, some blood. Remember that everyone's pain threshold is different. Some people can break their nose and be totally fine with it, show up the next week, and get back to training. Some people will stub their toe and be done for the day. Now, obviously the goal for all of us should be to strengthen our students and make it so that they can all deal with a broken nose with the same tact, but you should also be ready to meet someone where they're at. If someone feels like a minor injury to you is a major injury to them, don't shame them for it. Help them calm down and learn to deal with the pain. Get them the first aid or give them a few minutes to catch their breath, and then help them get back on the floor as safely as possible. But shaming someone for getting injured and handling it a certain way is never going to entice them to come back to train with you. They're just going to go train somewhere else. And there's always going to be a gym that's more accepting than you are, if that's your attitude. So to recap, there's a difference between hard training and training hard. Hard training is just an exercise in an inflated ego. It's something people do to make themselves feel dangerous without putting in the work to become dangerous. Training hard is extremely personal and depends on your goals, your abilities, and what you want to get out of your martial arts. It requires an instructor who wants to get to know you and help you become a better version of yourself. It is simple, but not easy. And there's a place for hard sparring, there's a place for light sparring, and we gotta learn to respect and sympathize with people when they get injured, but we also gotta learn to tell the difference between an injury and a little boo-boo. And that's my bag rants for today. I gotta think of a better title for this series of videos where I work out while I talk to you guys. So if you have any suggestions, go ahead and drop a name down in the comments. And while we're talking about that, if you enjoyed today's video, if you feel like you learned something, and if you're looking for a channel that combines the practicality of combat sports with the reality of self-defense and the fun of traditional martial arts, then please be sure to subscribe, tap the notification bell, like, share, and leave a comment. All of that support really helps me out. By the way, you guys, if you haven't gone to check out combatsd.square.site and picked up a t-shirt or a tank top, you're missing out. If you're looking to support the channel, please pick up some merch, send me a picture, and I'll give you a shout out on social media. As always, this has been Rob from Combat Self-Defense. I want to thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for the hard work yet to be done, and I'll see you next time.